Hi, I'm Kane Hodder. You're listening to the Timo and Harley Show. Keep listening, or I'll kill you.
Welcome to the Timo and Harley Show.
Thank you for listening to the Timo and Harley Show. I am Timo. Over there is my partner in mind crime, Mr. Ben Harley. Say hello, Harley.
What is happening, people?
Ben, ho, 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 Harley.
Ho, ho, ho.
Merry Christmas.
That's right. Oh, you'll shoot your eye out, Tim.
Yeah. Yes. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah,
Merry Christmas.
Kwanzaa. Happy holidays. Harley and I are Christmas guys. Yeah. But you know what? I just love this time of year. I just love it. I think it's so wonderful that so many of us have holidays and things to spend. And even if you're not a religious person in any kind of religion, it's still a cool time of year to kind of use it as a time to reacquaint yourself with friends and family.
Right.
You know, and stuff.
And also, you know, and to spread a little cheer, Tim, right?
Yeah, which we need. We need.
Yeah, oh, God, Tim, we do.
2020, don't let the door hit you on your way out. Right?
I know, and I feel bad, you know, because it's not 2020's fault, man, but I feel so bad. You know, when I was younger, Tim, I couldn't wait to turn 50, right? Yeah. Now wait, Tim, let me step back.
You better.
I never thought I would make it to 50. So as I got older, I figured it was going to be awesome to turn 50. I would make it. You know, I made it. Well, Tim, I turned 50 in 2020, and boy, did I take it right in the shorts.
You sure did. You sure did.
I mean, and I feel bad because a lot of my real good friends and guys I grew up with all turned 50 this year too, and we couldn't do nothing together, you know.
Right.
And
that sucks.
So it's but you know what? We're gonna make 2021 even better, right, Tim?
This is what I'm saying. I was talking to Angie the other night, and I think we said something about 2020. Let you know, don't let the door hit you on your way out. But here's the thing: I'm not going to say that because there's no guarantee that 2021 isn't going to make 2020 look like 1981.
Exactly.
So I'm not saying anything. I'm just going to hope for the best and expect the worst and move forward.
Right.
Well, we're teasing because what else can you do? What else can you do but laugh at 2020 at this point? You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, Tim, we've been through it.
Yeah, but you know what? We'll worry about that. That's next week. That's New Year's. Right now, let's just be glad that we still have a Christmas. Yeah. Well, very good. So we're just.
It's a great time of year, Tim. You're right, buddy. Thank you for mentioning. Yeah.
And well, you know, here's the thing too. It's been a rough. I mean, I don't care what you think about in your politics and your life and your love and everything. And if you like being around people, if you're a hermit, like if you like being around people like Ben Harley, if you're kind of more of a hermit like me, it's been a really trying year for so many reasons.
Oh, buddy. I mean,
I mean, for everybody, like there's no real winners in 2020. I mean, there really wasn't any winners in 20. And so it's a difficult year. My wish is that we kind of chill.
Yeah.
I want it to be boring for a little while.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But we all have to chip in to keep things boring.
Yeah.
I promise I will be boring as I have been on this show for 10 years. I will be even more boring just to chip in. But you got to promise, folks, you're going to listen and be bored while you're listening. You got to promise. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to break that promise, Mr. Ben Harley, right away. Right. I make the promise right away. I'm going to have to break the promise from being boring
right now.
Because Mr. Ben Harley, we have a Christmas gift for our listeners. Yes. And we started this last week.
Yes, sir.
We're continuing it this week. And for our New Year's show next week, we're going to have the finale of this, but we are going to turn over the show. The beginning of the show, usually where we really start putting people to sleep. We are going to turn over the beginning of the show with part 2 of my 3-part extensive interview with Synapse Films' own Jerry Chandler. Now, this week, check this out for Christmas. Jerry discusses how Synapse got together, how the company started, and where it came from and everything. And it's a fascinating little story. And I'm not just saying that. I mean, it really was fascinating because I didn't know. I never did ask any of these questions because, you're at you know these things. You're at a convention or something, and you're trying to find who smuggled the beer in to their table.
Right, yeah.
How are we going to sneak outside and cop a smoke? What's going, there's no talking. Yeah, right. There's no talking about like, where did you begin your career in this? Nobody cares. It's like, but I don't know. So, but it's just very fascinating. And Jerry is very forthcoming and talking about how they all got together and how Synapse started and his role and all that and Don's role. Yeah. And it's very cool. So we talk about that this week. Very interesting little conversation. So, Mr. Ben Harley, for the Deep Thinkers, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, however you celebrate them, Deep Thinkers.
Yes.
Here is for you, Jerry Chandler from Synapse Films.
Deep present.
Yes, it's a very deep present. It's a very deep conversation with the deep one himself, Mr. Jerry Chandler. So here we go, Mr. Ben Harley. Let's give the present to the Deep Thinkers. Here we go.
Merry Christmas.
Well, let's get to a couple questions I had. Now, these are legit questions that I'm curious about, and I don't think we've ever really talked about. Tell me how did you and Don get involved? How did Synapse start? What was the genesis of all this?
Oh, my God. I was hoping I would never hear that question again.
I don't know. I never asked you. Maybe that's why.
I mean, we've been in this business now for 26 years. And about 15 years ago, a professor of film in Wayne State was doing some kind of project, a short film or whatever. And he decided, he was a huge fan of what we do. And he got a hold of us because Wayne State is in Detroit, the college, and we're in the Detroit area. So he got a hold of us and actually shot a movie called The Synapse Story. And it's on YouTube if anyone's ever interested. It's broken into 4 parts, but it's an actual, answer to your question. But, if anyone's really interested in that, they can go to YouTube. Again, it's called The Synapse Story. I'll give you the short version of it.
Okay.
150,000 years ago, there used to be a magazine called Fangoria.
Yes.
And it was just starting in the early 80s, I'm going to say, or late 70s, something like that. All I remember is, I was a horror fan, and I remember growing up in the Detroit area, and every Wednesday I grabbed the newspaper, and and we're talking the 1960s. I would turn to the movie section, and I would see the beautiful black and white pictures of all the horror films that were playing in downtown Detroit theaters. And I'm like less than 10, and I'm begging my mom, please take me to, I want to see Don't Open the Window. Look, there's a hand. It's got. And my mom would say, I'm not taking it. It's too dangerous to go down to those theaters and blah, 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 blah. So you move the clock ahead, and they come out with Fangoria magazine. And I used to read Famous Monsters of Filmland when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And, I start buying Fangoria. Now, I'm not sure the exact date, so it's all fuzzy. But I think I was graduating college and starting to work in my first business, which was a steel business. And I'd buy every issue. And there was, at the back of the magazine, some of you may remember, there was always subscriber classifieds. And they had a little note saying, buy a subscription and get a free subscriber ad. So every year I would get one, and my ad would be to say hi to somebody I had met in the business or something like this. But one year, I think it was in 85 or 86, something like that. I don't know. It was the early days. The beta player had just came out. And it was already on the speed beta 2 and beta 3 on players, not beta 1 anymore, because those players weighed like 400 pounds and they were awful. So I bought one, and I hooked up HBO, and I actually taped the very first Star Trek movie. And it was like, oh my God, I'm holding a movie in my hand, a whole movie from beginning to end. And I can watch this anytime I want. So I've always been a collector of things at heart. And I started collecting movies, anything that would be on HBO, I would tape, whether I liked it or not, just because, look, I got another movie. Mm-hmm. So one year, I think it was like 85, 86, my subscriber ad was, movie trader, your list gets mine. And it gave my address, name and address. So I get a letter. Now I'm sitting here. This is, let's see, Don is like 51 or 52. So figure, this is 38 years ago, at least. I got the letter still in my desk right here. I found it years ago. And it's from Don. He's like 14 years old. And he says, hey, my name's Don May, and here's my list. Is there anything on it you want? Send me your list and we can trade. That's how I met Don. So the years go by. Him and I are become best friends. We're traders, best friends and shit. And I said, why don't you come up and visit? Now that you're 18 or whatever, come up and visit. So he did, and him and my girlfriend pick him up at the airport, and he spent the weekend there. And now the friendship is really cemented, right? So he goes to college, and I'm already done. I had left the steel company, and I started my own steel business. And he gets through college, goes to work for a Laserdisc store, and he's contacted by somebody he does business with. And they have discussions over a period of time, and they decide to form Elite Entertainment. And the first thing they go after is Night of the Living Dead, and I'm sure everybody knows that story. Mm-hmm. So Elite went on for a couple years. They wanted to borrow money from me because I was doing very well in the steel business. And I told Don, you know what, if it was you or whatever, I'm not particularly fond of your partner. He just seems a little... And Don goes, yeah, I know what you mean. And so I never lent them money. It was for their Dawn of the Dead. Sure enough, 3 years later, I'm going to make the long story very short. I don't know how much of this I'm supposed to talk about or not. But Don called me up because I was his best friend. And he said, look, I go out to L.A. to work all the time. Every time I come back to New Jersey, where our office is, there's these things that make me scratch my head. And I'm not going to go into detail, but he got a hold of my brother-in-law who used to work for the IRS, and he's also a lawyer. And he told Don, bring over all the financial paperwork you could find and fly to Detroit. Bring it. Let me take a look at it. And of course, they see there's all kinds of
irregularities.
Yeah, huge amounts of money just disappearing and whatever. But Don's not a businessman. Don's a technician. He's probably the best in the world at what he does. But he's not a businessman. So he's trusting, and he didn't know. But in the meantime, he's getting paid pennies, and his partner and the wife and the kids and everybody, they're living like kings. And again, his ex-partner was supposed to be the business end. So the lawyer tells Don, our third partner, I should say, Charles, tells Don, look, you got to get out of that company. You just got to either it gets handed over to you or you got to leave, one way or the other. There's so much trouble brewing because of what this person's done. It's not safe for you to stay, meaning you could end up in jail. So I said to Don, so we confront the partner. The partner says, I'll give you the entire company. Please don't put me in jail. Of course, and also the partner's accountant, the person who was doing the accounting for Elite, was in cahoots with Don's partner. So they said, we'll turn the entire company over to you and we'll fade out you'll never hear from us again. And Don goes, okay, let's do that. And then I called Don and I said, look, man, if you do it that way, you're never going to escape the taint. Meaning, sooner or later, the people who license elite may want royalties, or they may do an audit to see where that money is. And then he's gone and you're left holding the bag. He got all the money and you have all the responsibility. I said, yeah, it's an established company, Elite Entertainment. Everybody knows who they are. And it's terrible to tear something apart. It's much easier to tear it down than to build something new back up. But I said, Don, I think you can do it. And it'll be clean. So we told them, no, you keep Elite, and where is Elite today? It's basically gone.
Right.
But if you could appreciate the mountain, the hurdle we had to climb, he left the foremost name in collecting horror. He left that company. They did Nightmare on Elm Street. They did Dawn. Look at all the great movies they did. And he had to come and start from scratch with nothing. And I think we've done quite a job considering where he came from and where we are today. And the fact that where he left is the dustbin of history, and we're still going strong. So we're going to do a new company. Well, the lawyer and Don, they're forming a new company. And I said, hey, you know, what are we going to call it? Whatever. I came up with the name Synapse because I just thought it was smart. You know, your brain has synapses that fire all the time, and we're sitting around thinking of what to do for Don. Let's call it Synapse Films, right?
Right.
So they get the paperwork ready, and they hand me something to sign. I'm going to loan Don some money. And my father, God bless him, he's 96, he's still around. He's been my confidant, my consigliere my entire life. So I told my dad, I'm going to loan my friend this money. And my dad goes, okay, I understand. He goes, you realize the chances are you're never going to get the money back. I said, of course I realize that, Dad. I said, but, I've been doing very well in the steel business. This is not going to really affect my life. I want to do something nice for somebody. I don't get many opportunities in my life to do something nice. Mm-hmm. So Don I've known him since he was a kid. He ran into this terrible thing that happened, and I want to give him some money. And if he can't pay me, no big deal, whatever. So I tell Don that, and I tell Charles that, the lawyer. I said, I'm going to loan this money, but if he can't pay it back, the hell with it. We're just going to give him a chance to get on his feet. If he can't pay me back, awesome. So a couple days later, Charles comes over. Don's still at my house, and he goes, okay, you got to sign the papers. I said, no, what are you talking about? I'm not signing any papers. He goes, Jerry, no, we got papers here. You got to sign. I said, I told you, I'm giving him this money. If he could pay me back, fine. If he can't, fine. I'm not signing any papers. Don goes, Jerry, sign the fucking papers. So I pick it up and I look. I say, oh, no. And they look at me. What are you saying no to? I said, I'm not taking half the company. I said, I'm doing this for Don. This is Don's company. I'm trying to do something nice. I'm not buying in. I'm lending him the money. And Don looks at me and he goes, dude, I appreciate it, but I can't run the fucking company by myself. I got to create. That's what I do. He goes, who's going to run this company while I'm in L.A.? Who's going to pay the bills? Who's going to be the business? He said, I need you. Uh-huh. I said, okay, well, that's a different story. Okay, if you really need me, then I'll be your partner. I said, as long as you understand, I'm not asking for something in exchange for lending you the money. He goes, I get it. Shut the fuck up already. I don't care about that. I need a partner. Okay. So I said, Charles, you're going to be in too? We gave him a little percentage so he wouldn't charge Don any legal fees, because there was a lot of work getting him out of Elite and making sure that the taint of Elite didn't wash on him. And Don didn't have the money to pay because he wasn't getting paid as well as his partner was. Right. So, so that's how the three of us came into being. And our first two titles were Dario Argento's World of Horror and Document of the Dead. And that's how we met Roy Frumkes, who's one of the greatest people in this industry. It's funny. There's a lot of average people that you do business with, and they don't make much of a mark on your mind, much of an impression. But then there's a certain percentage of people in this business that are absolutely hated by everybody in the industry, and another group that's absolutely loved. And it shows you, you could say no to people, whatever, but you could be a decent person and it's appreciated. Or you could be a rat, an absolute curmudgeon, and achieve like the same things and just be hated by everybody. And it's weird that people choose the routes they choose. And of course, I could give you names of all the horrible people that are despised, but I'm not going to.
Right.
But some of the great, wonderful people is like a Roy Frumkes. He's just one of the sweetest people I ever met. He's just really a great guy. So we met him, and then he gave us Street Trash, and we've like a Street Trash. I don't ever have to worry about somebody coming and taking the license from me because our relationship with Roy is so close. It would just never happen. So that's the story of how Synapse started. Aren't you sorry you asked?
No, I was absolutely fascinated. I knew that Don had something to do with Elite. That's what I knew. And then I knew that this company, Synapse, had come from that somehow. I did not know that story at all. Now I know. I'm glad I know now. Now I don't have to ask you again. See, now I have it recorded. So if I ever want to know again, I can just go back to my Mac and go, how do those guys get together again? And I'll sit down and I'll have my glass of wine. And I'll listen to you tell it again.
You could tell why I don't like talking about it. In this particular situation, I came through to help a friend and blah, blah, blah. It's interesting. But when I tell the story, it sounds very self-serving. And, my ego is small in comparison to the average ego. It's not giant. So I get very uncomfortable talking about stuff that involves me doing nice things for other people.
Well, I think it's okay to be proud of where you're at now, given in your mind, the humble beginnings, humble as far as your intentions. It's nice to know. It's good to know that that's how you guys got together. It's good to know, too, you guys were really good friends first. I didn't know that. I didn't know you guys were friends first. I mean, as far as I knew, you guys met and had a common bond and started working together, which is kind of what happened, I guess. But I didn't realize that it had been a good friendship first, as opposed to a business relationship that really worked, and you guys became really good friends. I didn't know.
Don is my oldest friend in the world. I mean, I haven't had a friend that I still hang out with that long. He moved to Michigan. He only lives a couple miles from me.
That's great.
So we still see each other aside from work, socially.
I want to get into, since you started talking about Street Trash and all that, I'll let you pick the movie that you're proud of or how it came to pass. I'd like to know how do you from sitting there going, I'd like to put Suspiria out on Blu-ray or whatever film you want to talk about. You guys just released Massacre at Central High, which looks beautiful. I want to go from the very beginning to you guys actually releasing it. I know there's a ton of work involved, many layers of work involved. I don't think people, let's say like myself, I am your demographic. I am the kind of person who collects physical media. I collect cult films, horror films, and the quote regular films as well. But I'm the kind of guy who keeps an eye out to what companies like yourself are releasing to add to my collection. And we like to talk, or as we say, bitch and moan sometimes about movies like this that need Blu-ray releases. It's a tried and true pastime of collectors to complain. So let's talk about what it takes to release something like this and why it takes a while sometimes. So for instance, to begin with, do you literally just sit there and go, I think I'd like to release Suspiria. What do we need to do? Is that how it starts?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Not even close.
Good.
You couldn't be further away.
Okay, good. I want to hear it.
What generally happens, and I can't speak for other companies, I can only speak for Synapse. We're just a two-man show. Our lawyer doesn't get involved unless I call him to have him send somebody a license agreement. I give him the details of the license, and that's it. So it's really just me and Don. And because it's only two of us, and I'm sure everybody listening understands the Synapse way is a little different than most of the other labels in the sense that, you know, Don is all about the restoration. So our work is going to be better than anyone else's pretty much. And you're going to get a disc with no errors on it, no mistakes. I mean, the punctuation on the back cover, spacing between words. I mean, there's nothing he doesn't look at and fix. And again, if you're a fan of Synapse, you know we are probably one of the slowest companies to release titles. And this goes into your question.
Right.
So your question is actually two parts. The first part is in getting titles. So we don't have the luxury to sit there and say, hey, we want this movie. Let's find out who owns it and see if we can license it. Because we're too damn busy. We always got 50 movies we're working on. Mm-hmm. With us, what generally happens is one of two things. Either the person loves their movie, the producer, whoever owns it, loves the movie so much that they want the best possible presentation. So they find us and they say, hey, we want you to do our movie. That's one way we get movies.
Okay.
The other way is if it's a movie broker or whatever, and they're used to dealing with all our competitors, and they think they're getting lowballed by them, they'll call us and say, hey, you guys, they're going to teach the other guys a lesson. So they'll call us and say, hey, we're being offered this much. If you could pay us this much, we'll give you this, this, and this. And that's how we got a lot of movies, including Suspiria, which, somebody was dicking them around, a very major, large company on the West Coast. And when they turned around and gave it to us, the guy just blew a gasket. But look at how good that was for the fans.
Yeah, yeah.
Because from Suspiria, we made, first of all, there was an article in Forbes magazine online on Suspiria, on our restoration. And they said the Blu-ray was the best Blu-ray created to date. And they mentioned that when we did the 4K, we didn't just port over the same transfer. It was all brand new color correction, new cleanup for the 4K, and that the 4K version was the best 4K ever created. They call them reference discs that should be in every TV store. Well, if it went to the company on the West Coast, I mean, look at their product, look at their quality, and look at all their recalls. So, we got lucky, and it led to the fans getting lucky. So we don't really go after a lot of films. Most of them come to us. That's the first part of your question. The second part then becomes, once you get the movie, then what?
Right.
Well, over the years, we've turned down a lot of movies because one thing I'll say about Don, we're going to be all alone in the industry as far as cleanup and color and this and this. We're going to put out a product that's going to be heads and tails above everybody else. And I don't like bringing this kind of stuff up for the reasons we talked about. But in this case, I mean, you can't argue. It is what it is.
Right.
So,
well, I'll let me speak for you as someone who is a customer of your competitors as well as yourself. But in my opinion, there are all the companies I enjoy because I like them. We all like the same kinds of movies. And we're talking about companies that are putting out movies that we enjoy. The quality of the transfers, the prints, and everything can vary incredibly. And so you guys are for quality more than quantity. So if you guys, to me, what it seems like is that other companies, I think, might rush out a release to satisfy the fans who are impatient. You guys won't release something until you can't find a flaw in it. And sometimes that can take quite a while. But at the same time, once I get one of your releases, as opposed to a couple other companies, I might actually scour the disc to make sure it's okay. What does this look like? Okay, well, that's all right. That's okay. What you guys do is almost boutique. It's like, we're going to make this look as good as technology will allow us today. And I'm not saying that other companies don't put out something that looks good, but you guys work extra hard to make sure what is put out is the best you guys can with what you have available, which is just about everything. So that's my take on it.
Thank you. That's very close. So I'm going to give you an example of a movie everybody wanted and everybody wanted us to do, but Don said absolutely not. Years ago, we did a movie with Jeff Lieberman called Blue Sunshine.
Oh, sure. Right.
And then Jeff came and said, somebody should do my movie just before dawn.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, Jeff, license it to us. He goes, I can't. I don't own it. The producer does. I said, fine. Can you put me in contact with him? And he did. And like a lot of people in this business, this producer was such a tool. And I mean that in the worst possible way. I get him on the phone, and, we come to an agreement on everything. So I say to him, okay, what are you going to give us? And he goes, well, I got this 1-inch master. So I said, well, that won't work. Don won't use a 1-inch master. You'll never get he can't make it do his magic on a 1-inch master. I said, we need a inner positive, a negative, something. He goes, well, I have the negative, but I'm not going to let that go. I said, well, we'll go to where the negative is and we'll scan it wherever your facility is, but we got to use the negative. We can't use a film print.
Right.
No. So every couple of weeks, I'm like the dog that grabs your pant ankle and you try and ignore him and keep walking, but it doesn't matter. The dog never lets your pant ankle, right. your pant leg go. Right. It's got it his way. He's walking along with you. Every couple of weeks, I call the guy, talk to him for a half hour, trying to beg him for the thing. So finally, he says, guess what? What? I licensed the movie to one of your competitors. I go, you did? He goes, yeah. And they were perfectly happy to take the 1-inch master. I go, okay, well, great. Guess I'll never be talking to you again. And I hung up the phone. Sure enough, whoever it was puts it out, and immediately the fans start bitching. It looked like crap. It was missing footage, whatever. We won't do movies like that. If we can't get the proper materials, we won't put them out. We just won't. So that's why a lot of stuff went out to other companies, and it looks like crap. It was stuff that we were working on licensing, but we ended up walking away because we couldn't get materials good enough.
Well, and these producers need to understand also that the fans that are buying these Blu-rays, you don't think we look at the back of the Blu-ray to see where the source is coming from? You don't think there was a couple people that bought, maybe I shouldn't use certain titles, but let's say like Tourist Trap. And we're like, what is this? Did you dupe a DVD onto something else, and
how about the old version of Intruder?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Look at the difference between ours and the old version.
Oh,
it's huge.
Yeah.
Look at Prom Night. Look at Curtains. I mean, it's like, oh my God.
Right.
But like Prom Night and Curtains, we found the original negative.
Yes.
Nobody knew where they were. Nobody.
That's another question. Give me a story about finding a negative. Something like, you had the one where the producers.
Put it to you like this.
Yeah.
Let me put it to you like this, because it goes in conjunction with the other question or story.
Okay.
Somebody came to us and said, hey, guess what? And we said, what? He said, I found the negatives, the original negatives to Prom Night and Curtains. So for that, we had to then reverse engineer and find out who owned the rights. And that was tough because it was not owned by anyone involved with the original production of the film, of either film. They had gone to bankruptcies and banks and part of catalogs and this and this and this. That took an awful long time. But we untied the, what do they call it, a Gordian knot? We untied it, and we figured it out. It took a number of years, and we were given permission to do those two movies. And like I said, the old prom night and the new prom night is night and day. Same with curtains. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah, it was The Intruder. I actually watched that with Danny Hicks at my house.
Danny loved that.
Well,
what
and
we did with it.
He loved that movie. He was so proud of that performance, and I was one of the people who I'd only seen the bad edited version of it. And he had always told me, and I was pleasant with him about it, but I being a movie snob, I was like, yeah, I kind of know better. I don't care if you were in the movie. I know what this movie is. And he kept telling me, he's like, you got to see it unedited. And to me, I'm like, gore is not going to change whether I like the movie or not, And he's like, no, it's more than that, And so we sat down and watched it, and I even told, I got to hand it to you, you're right. I said the movie didn't even make sense before, and now it totally makes sense. And this would have been, had this movie originally come out, even with it unedited, never mind the amazing restoration you guys did and all that, this would have been a giant hit. I mean, at least a cult hit with all of us fans. And I think the editing killed it. But you guys putting that out to me, being a very close friend of Danny's, I don't really think you realize how much that meant to him. For people to be able to actually see that. It was very touching to him. He loved his performance in that movie. He absolutely loved it. And he felt like no one ever got to see it. And I sat with him at conventions, and we sent a lot of people over to your table talking about Intruder. I know that. Because he's like, you have to see the Synapse Films. He goes, don't watch any of this other stuff you see. Go over there and buy it.
It's funny because we only bring a handful of copies of everything because we're old men. Mm-hmm. But that's one of the titles that sells out at every show, or used to anyways when there were shows.
Right.
So I probably owe you the thanks.
Well, thank you too. To me, I mean, that's the thing though. If it's not like I'm going to tell whether we're friends or not. It's not like I'm going to, when you're not around, if something you did or something I don't like, I'm not going to tell somebody to go grab it. It's honest. It's the truth, And when I say that I know that other companies put out stuff that's suspect, I will give an example from me personally, because I've already talked about this in the show. I don't know people, I don't know individuals from these companies. So for me, it's not personal. And I don't mean this personal, even though we're talking about a competitor. But I'm not even going to name the competitor, but I'll name the movie that I was horrified when I bought it. I bought the 1970s movie Bug. Bradford Dillman in it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I put that in, and if you're going to tell me that somebody didn't just take whatever was used for the DVD with basically the same resolution and stuck it on a Blu-ray and put it out to us fans telling us this is a Blu-ray release of Bug. It was awful. It was terrible. I put it in, and it was one of the few movies that I put in that I looked at it that I wanted to return on the grounds it was false advertising. This is not high definition even. And I just didn't as a collector. I probably should have, because it was awful. I was personally insulted to put that in, to think you're trying to pull the wool over eyes of people who use their eyes to look at this crap all the time.
I'm going to tell you a very brutal thing that is not going to be nice for anybody to hear. At the end of the day, I mean, you and I are fans and collectors, and we're talking to fans and collectors and people who are really into it. At the end of the day, this is a business just like any other. And it's full of people who are business people, just like all the other businesses. People who are, all they care about is making a quick buck. So you're going to have, it's like, I'll give you an example. We were trying to get, what was it called? Night of the Demons.
Yeah.
Okay. And we were really close. We were talking to the two guys who were handling it, and, and we were very close, or we thought we were very close. And when we were expecting the phone call to hear that we got the deal, the phone call was, hey, we decided to give it to Shout Factory. And I go, are you kidding? No, they paid like a lot more than you. I said, of course they did, because they're financed by a giant company. They have millions of dollars at their. We're two guys that are working our asses off. We don't do that well at all. But they said sorry. So that's the first type, the guy who only gives a shit about how much money he's going to make. So it goes to them. And they put out an average version, but it was nothing spectacular. I think it had some problems with it too. There were some glitches and stuff like that. And that's it. All the fans get screwed because the licensor, all he cared about was making a few extra bucks. So they came to us. It's funny. I'm almost laughing. It's kind of poignant. Shout Factory throws out the DVD and a Blu-ray and everything. And so the mass market is already shot, because most of the people who bought their version are just people who wanted to see the movie. And so if we do a restored version, most of the market's already gone by people who don't care that you're restoring it. So they came to us anyways, and they said, look, we made a mistake. We want to do a beautiful version, and we're going to give you Night of the Demons and this and this and this and this and this. And we thought about it because we were annoyed. Sure, they're going to come back to us now. They got their big payout, and now that the market's been ruined, now they'll come to us to have us put in tens of thousands, maybe even $100,000 to restore it. We'll never get our money back. But I thought, with these other extra movies they're offering us, I don't know, maybe it's worth doing. So I said to them, okay, we're interested. When does the other deal expire? Oh, we don't know. We'll figure it out. So I get a call back about 2 weeks later, and they said, we didn't notice something in Shout Factory's agreement. They put something in there that it automatically renewed and whatever, and it's there till at least 2030.
Really?
Yeah. A lot of companies do that. They put in crap in the boilerplate, and if you don't catch it, you're screwed.
All right, Mr. Ben Harley.
Jerry
Chandler from Synapse Films. So that was I told you it was interesting. Told you it was. So next week, we are going to conclude our in-depth 3-part.
In-depth, yes.
It's just amazing. We don't do many interviews in the show.
No.
I don't.
No, we don't.
I don't do them. I mean, it's a lot of work for me. Because got to pick out the time to do it. And then I have to create questions, because I can't just have somebody interesting on the show and go, tell us things that are interesting. Go. Yeah. You can't. You have to have questions. You have to be able to get the information out of people to make it interesting or not. So it is work. It's work.
Yes.
So,
Tim, you do a damn good job.
Well, thank you. But the thing is, to me, is that I'm fascinated by some of these interviews. I mean, like this one with Jerry. I mean, God, the thing is, too, and I've said this before, I can't believe we haven't had him on before.
Right.
But that is because we don't have guests. I'm used to this being me and you, and we could have guests on every week if we want. I don't think about it. We have a lot to say. And it's hard enough to pare this down into a listenable show, So, but it's fascinating. And Jerry was a great interview. I mean, it really is. And next week is really the crescendo. I mean, that to me is him talking about how these movies go from point A to point B in your hands in a nice Blu-ray.
Right.
It's pretty interesting. And I thought I was a pretty savvy guy when it came to this stuff, but there were things I did not know. I just did not know how some of this stuff worked. And it's a little bit, it's enlightening. Let's put it that way. It's enlightening. Yeah. So like last week we talked about how they were doing, how Synapse was doing through COVID, and how some of the independent films that they put out, which we're gonna have Jerry back on. There's more independent films and more things he wants to talk about. And believe it or not, there's a wealth of stuff that that we can talk about. Obviously, we had to cut ourselves short basically to even get this interview going. And then this week, of course, we talk about the history of Synapse Films, and and then to have that whole. I mean, I've known these people. I didn't know half this stuff. So to me, it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. So,
and Tim, you're one of them behind the scenes type guys. You like to know these things, right?
Well, I want to know what I'm bitching about.
Right.
Yeah, I do. I mean, when me and you spend years pounding our fist, putting the show out, complaining the prophecy is not on Blu-ray, I want to know why. And this helps understand that.
And Tim, and I mean, I think it for the listeners and stuff too. I think it's just this is a neat thing for them to learn too, and for us, and so it breaks it up a little bit. I mean, people can only take my voice for so long.
well, they can only take, I think, both of us for so long. So that being said, thank you, Jerry, again.
Thank you
for being such a good interview subject. You know what? In the space-time continuum, I still need to get a hold of Mr. Mark Diamond, because he's still got that shark exploitation. I'll get a hold of him. We will get that done. He is actually a teacher, so I know he's going to have a little bit of time coming up here through the holidays. So we're gonna get Mark on too. So we'll have even more of a gift. So 2021, hopefully, if all goes well, is going to be rung in on a good note. More gifts for the listeners. So we're going to pitch in
from this side of the room, Tim. We're going to take care of our listeners. Yes.
We're going to try. We're going to try to keep it boring yet moving it forward, because 2021 needs to be boring, right? We're going to have to be.
Yes, it does.
It's going to have to be boring. All right. So
yeah.
Thank you, Jerry. Again, next week we will have our third and last part of that interview with Jerry from Synapse Films.
Thank you, Jerry. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely.
We appreciate it so much.
Now let's get to our official little film for this week, Mr. Ben Harley, from 1983.
Yes.
We have the film
83. Wow.
Yeah. We have the film Mausoleum.
Yeah. Wow.
So let me get out movie guy and give you a short storyline synopsis here for Mausoleum.
Mausoleum.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
A teenager mourning the death of her mother becomes possessed by a demon who's been preying on her family ancestors for centuries. Years later, the demon starts to take over her body, mentally and physically. I don't like some of IMDb's storyline synopses. They just kind of end like, years later, the demon starts to take over her body, mentally and physically. I think taking over her body, you don't need to put physically in there, do you?
No. No, you've already taken over.
Yes. So. Okay, so the movie, it starts off with, it's a funeral, right?
Yes.
And it's like a little girl. She goes into a mausoleum and her mom is being buried or whatever and stuff. So what they're setting up is a family curse.
Yes.
As the storyline synopsis said, that it's an ancient demon has been preying on her ancestors for centuries. I don't really know if I caught exactly why this demon.
Me either.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. For a movie called Mausoleum, Timo, there's not much mausoleum.
Needs more mausoleum.
Needs more mausoleum, man. Now, at one point I said, this movie's called Mausoleum, right? And I was like, okay, all right. Okay.
Right. So we set up, basically what we do is we set up this little thing where the main person in this movie, Susan, is a little girl and her eyes get googly and they glow. And when that happens, a guy, was it her dad or something, runs out of the mausoleum and his head explodes. Or the back of his head blows out, right?
Yeah.
And which, cool. I don't know why that happened, but man, that looked kind of neat. That was good.
Yeah.
Then we just kind of cut to where she is an adult. And Susan is now okay. To say that the little girl doesn't look anything like the adult girl.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah. There's no explaining that, how different. Anyway, so she becomes Bobby Brazee. Or Brazee or whatever. She is curvy.
Yes.
And proud.
And proud of it, yes.
And I'm proud of her, Mr. Ben Harley. I'm proud of her. So,
I'm proud
Bobby Brazee, she was also in Ghoulies. Star Slammer, which I actually like Star Slammer a lot. It's a space women's prison movie. Well, you can't go wrong with Timo. There goes that.
No, you can't.
And Evil Spawn, which is a similar kind of a transformative monster movie, kind of like this one. Yes. She is married to a gentleman by the name of Oliver, played by Marjoe Gortner.
Yeah.
All right. Who plays...
He's been around, right?
He was in Star Crash, Food of the Gods, probably what you remember mostly for was Food of the Gods.
Yeah.
Also in Bobby Joe and the Outlaw, where he got to play Linda Carter's boyfriend. He is my hero. Yeah, he's my hero.
Wow. I want to high five him.
Now, Marjoe Gortner here. Now, here you go. In 1972, all right, he put out a documentary called Marjoe, which was nominated if it did not win an Oscar.
Really?
Okay. Now, Marjoe Gortner was the world's youngest evangelical preacher. When he was like 4 or 5, he was spitting brimstone and fire.
He was. Yeah,
he was out there. He was preaching the good word. He was like a tent revival little kid going through his life. Okay. So what Marjoe was a documentary. He decided that he was going to quit because it's a scam. And I hate to tell people this, but all the TV evangelists, all these people you see are con artists. I hate to be the one to break this to everybody.
Right, yeah.
Well, Marjoe went on his last tour and brought a camera crew to film a documentary called Marjoe. So they would show him go into all these revival, in all these churches. And I mean, he preached, baby. He was healing. He was putting the hands on people. He was doing everything.
Oh, was he?
Then they were following him back to his hotel room where he would roll around in beds of cash.
Wow.
Yeah. But now he was doing this on purpose. He was trying to show the people you're being had. You're being had by these people. This isn't against God. This is against people using that to just simply make money, which is what they're doing.
Right. Yes.
If they weren't, then they wouldn't have the giant TV deals and churches and stuff like that.
These are mega churches. We're talking about. We're talking giant places.
Right. If you ever get a chance to watch the documentary Marjoe, it does stream sometimes. I think I caught it on Hulu, of all places.
Really?
So it does still stream. So if you ever get a chance, watch it. It's eye-opening, and it's very, very good. So basically, Marjoe became sort of a celebrity because of that documentary. Well, he was a celebrity already because he was on TV in black and white when he was a little kid preaching. So he used a celebrity to become an actor, basically. And so that's why he's in some of these B movies and everything. He's not, the camera likes him.
Oh, yeah.
The camera does like him. He's not, he's got that thing.
He's got that little pizzazz.
He does. He's got that, whatever it is, that kind of star quality, I guess they would call it. Okay, so anyway, so Marjoe and Bobby, they're married. So Susan and Oliver Farrell. Bobby Brzee, Susan, she, immediately what this is going to be. She starts becoming possessed.
Yeah, because she's super sweet at first. She's super nice and sweet, and then she gets a little kooky. Yeah, she gets a little
very seductive to people who she has no business being seductive to.
Yeah,
like Ben, the gardener.
The gardener, yeah,
played by Maurice Sherbani. Or Sherbani, sorry, Maurice Sherbani. Meanwhile, in the periphery, it's like they have like a family doctor, Dr. Simon Andrews, played by Norman Burton. He's just a character actor. He's been in like Diamonds Are Forever, Planet of the Apes, Towering Inferno. He was in Bloodsport.
What?
Yeah.
All right.
So I knew
Bloodsport.
I knew you'd be on his side. Yeah, I knew you'd be on his side. So what we have here is we have Marjoe and Bobby, so Oliver and Susan Farmer. Of course, Oliver, the husband, is in complete darkness about what's happening. And Susan Farmer is, you can tell she's starting to become possessed. She's a little girl from the beginning. Yeah. You have the gardener, Ben the gardener, is always around the background, he's there to be menacing and to let you know that Susan is becoming more and more possessed in a way where she'd even give it up to old Ben the gardener.
The gardener, man.
Yes, and Dr. Simon Andrews is there to pick her brain and let the audience know what the hell is going on. Trying to explain somehow why this is all happening. And he tries.
And Tim, it really, It kind of is. It's funny because like her character is kind of a nice girl, you know, and like they actually, I know at the beginning they go to like a nightclub and she's dancing, you know, her and her husband are dancing, and then Dan Haggerty's stunt double. Grizzly Adams.
Yeah. That's what I thought it was too. I told Angie, I go, that's Dan Haggerty. I was like, oh no, it's not.
Yeah,
no, it's not.
like, no, yeah.
At first, though, I thought it too. Yeah,
I did too. I was like, is that Dan Haggerty? I was kind of hoping.
Congratulations,
really
by the way, to that guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, seriously. But he comes over after what's his name excuses himself, her husband, and then tries to get really creepy with her. And she's like, well, get away from me, you know, blah blah blah. And then they leave the club. And Dan Haggerty, the guy, he's hammered, and he kind of like bumps into him as he's going to his car. Well, she doesn't like that. And she goes all green-eyed. And at that point, I'm like, wait a second, really? And she burns him up in his car.
Yeah.
But her husband tries to save him, but doesn't see, you know, that his wife's got green eyes, and she's the one doing this.
Right.
But from that point, you're like, wait a second, because she doesn't seem like that type of character. So it's kind of off-putting. And then, then the next thing that happens is, she's at home, and Ben the gardener, who's not very, very, not too handsome, but I guess handsome enough. She really gives him the business, like, get out of here, and what are you doing, and blah. And he really just came, I think, to get a drink of water or something. And then it goes through showing him, like, it was like a Harlequin romance or something.
Right.
Like, also it shows him, like, he's out there having lunch by the pond, and there's sweet music going on, and he's eating this lunch and then reading a book and laughing.
His shirt hanging open.
He's sitting on a swing, like a tree swing.
He's got
where is this going?
And he's got like a Joe Spinell kind of sexual like energy. It's just
I guess where is this going?
Right.
Well, after she treats him like crap and he has his lunch, then she decides to show him her boobs from up on she's up in her balcony,
and she's like acting very sexual, like she's being seductive.
She's got a glass of wine.
Yeah, she's being seductive. She knows he's looking. It's obvious that she knows he's looking at her, and so she starts taking her clothes off, inviting him.
So she takes her top off, shows him. And then he kind of goes back to work. Then she comes down later, dressed, and brings him. Well, she brought him something, and then decides to take him to like the shed and have sex with him. I'm like, what is going on? Is this? And I kept thinking to myself, is this the same lady from the beginning? Like, I don't know what's going on. But when she becomes such an asshole,
right. Yep.
Yeah. So then poor Ben the gardener, he has a couple minutes of fun, I guess. And then she kills him.
She transforms into demon-y type of things and kills up people. Basically what this is it is an unmotivated possession movie.
Yes.
And it's one of those very awkward, strange films where everything is in place for a fun early 80s B movie. Except for a story, except for any kind of like motivation. So here's the thing. So what you're explaining is basically a possession movie where the woman is becoming a monster. She's becoming more and more possessions. She's basically becoming a demon and stuff, but you don't really know why. There's no real motivation, and anyone around her is in danger just for being around her.
Yes.
And that's it. I'm going to kind of go around the back door here on this movie. Okay, this is what I'm going to tell you. I know that sounded kind of gross, but I'm going to tell you. Okay, so John Carl Buechler, fellow Belleville guy, Belleville, Illinois guy, really? John Carl Buechler, who was did a show in St. Louis. I actually booked him. And the way I talked him into, he is passed, unfortunately, now. But the way I talked him into coming was I couldn't really afford him. But I said, you get a free trip home. I know your high school. Once I told him I'm from Belleville and I know like his high school, my aunt when it was in his class and everything, he came. He got there. Oh yeah, free trip home. You're right. Stuff like that. Yeah. So good guy, nice guy. He is in Stalking Bigfoot for a very split second. Yeah, actually. Yeah. But anyway, John Carl Buechler was talking about this movie, and he basically said that the people were very enthusiastic who were making this movie, but they were novice. They didn't know what they were doing. Right. They had the money, they had everything, and they hired decent people technically to do some things. But as far as putting together a cohesive story and stuff, and he said what was funny. Well, he said what was funny is that they really thought this movie was like the bee's knees. They really thought they had something special. Yeah. Well, they had little special pieces and parts because John Carl Buechler's work is really fascinating. The monsters and everything are stark. Yeah. They're in your face. I mean,
yes, they are.
They got a little bit of It's Alive, Only the Alive, big-headed, ugly baby looks and maybe some chud kind of things going on. Something like that. But it's, for instance, there is an excruciatingly long and boring transformation scene toward the end.
Yes.
Where Susan is turning into the demon, basically splitting in two, becoming Susan, and the demon is splitting away from her. And they just hang on like the most uninteresting parts of the transformation, like these dissolves forever. And Buechler was talking about this, saying, he goes, it's got to be the longest transformation in movie history. He even said that. He's like, he goes, and they hang on the worst parts of it. He goes, they hang on and he said the producers loved it.
Really?
They thought it was great. Yeah, they did it on purpose. They just thought it was great. So they were just novices. They really were. They were very enthusiastic, though. You can tell. You watch this movie, you're like, what? Yeah. Harley, I've said this before to you. What the hell is wrong with this movie? You get this like, there's clearly there's talent. Somebody knew what lens to use on the camera. These actors have been in movies before.
Yeah.
The maid, Elsie the maid, was LaWanda Page.
Oh yes,
and Esther.
Oh man,
from Sanford and Son. Yeah, she's great. She's
Esther. Yeah.
I mean, just great.
Yeah. Tim, like the story was just kind of weird, It
is, yeah.
Because she's kind of trying, like she becomes more and more, like you said, demon-y and things like that. But there's like a part where she goes to, oh my gosh, she goes to the mall, right?
Yeah.
And she goes into this like art store. And Tim, I was hoping that you would explain to me because I guess her husband hated the painting. So let me start before I get to that part. So she finds a painting, right? And it's like it looks like two paintings put together, and she wants the painting. And the guy who's like awful. I mean, I thought my voice was bad. This guy, the guy who runs the shop, the art shop or whatever, art store, tells her no, it's already been sold. No, I want this. And he said, no, it's been sold. And she said, I don't care how much, I'll pay. Right. He's like, I can't sell you something that has already been sold. Well, she ends up stealing the painting, right?
Right.
And and one of the craziest parts I've ever seen in a film is like, so she's running away, or not even running away, trying to walk away, and he's chasing her, saying, hey, thief. She picks him up with her mind. Right. In front of all these people. Like
her eyes start glowing and he starts rising into the air slowly, like as if on a slow crane, which he probably was, going straight up in the air. And he's like kind of dangling as if he's hanging off of wires, which he is. Yeah, right. Exactly.
And all these people in the mall are watching it happen. Like they're like, and he dangles him like over the railing, which this mall looks like a 3-story mall or whatever, and then drops him down in front of all these people. And I'm thinking to myself, did nobody see this happening? I know y'all were watching it.
Right.
What the hell was people to think? Like, that guy just jumped off or something? Right. But like, it's so funny because in the movie, I've never seen so many extras or people in the background looking at the camera more in my life.
Right.
They were all like watching her. Like, you guys know you're in a movie, right? Do you know you're not supposed to be watching the camera?
Right.
I know you want to be in it and you want everybody to see that you're in it, but like it was blowing my mind. I was like, that scene, the whole mall scene for me was like, what the hell just happened? You know what I mean? Like,
well, and I think that was Buechler's point, is that they had like these ideas that like most of the time when you're going through the process of making a script or a movie or something, you get ideas and then you see if they work and you start paring things down and you bounce ideas off of other people and you collaborate and you do stuff.
Right.
And I mean, to me, it was sort of like what he was saying was that these guys had all the energy, they had all the spunk. Yeah. They just didn't understand what they were making was not going to make much sense. Right. And it's not that it's only confusing because it doesn't make because people's actions and motivations don't make much sense because you're not given any reason for it. And these are the kind of people who they want to make money off the horror thing. They don't really know horror. Does that make sense? Like they want to give an audience what they want. They want to give their intentions besides just wanting to make money are fairly good, because I believe these producers and stuff want to give a horror audience so much of what they want that you can't help but to throw your money at them. Right. But I think the thing is that it's so awkward and stuff, because what they're doing is they're just saying that, oh, it's a horror crowd, they'll get it. Right. You know, it's a horror crowd. They'll understand what being possessed is all about. Just show her eyes glowing, and they'll get Satan's after her, and then have some good bloody effects and some monsters, and they'll be scared and they'll know. You have to give, and that's the problem, that you're not giving the horror crowd enough credit. So what they're doing is they are enjoying what they're seeing, but they're laughing at it as being a silly B movie that makes no sense. So, and it's sad because if it only had a little more plot, it didn't need any more technical things. No, it just needed that Dr. Andrews guy to explain something a little bit more, or it needed somebody to kind of say, "Oh,
because at one point, like, her husband wakes up and she's sitting in the rocking chair looking like a demon, and he freaks out and calls the doctor, like, wait, you didn't even try to go over her and be like, what's wrong with you? Why are you a demon right now? Like, no, he just goes and calls the doctor, and it's like, oh, it's okay. Everything. I'm like, no, it's not. Right. And I've never seen Tim. So getting back to the painting that she bought, she brings home this painting, and her husband, I've never seen a guy or a person have a reaction to a painting like this in my life. And it's not even that bad. Like, it's not like, there's like a naked girl riding a guy who's half horse, you know. And
I'm wondering if it was because it was risque, why he was like. You remember, it's 1983. It's 1983. It's a different culture at the time. He acted
like she was like this depraved monster, and I'm thinking, well, I hope that guy doesn't see some of the stuff that I've drawn over the years. Well, that's Lord, man, he's gonna have me committed, man.
Right. You know? Well, and I think part of that is the fact that the culture has changed to the point where maybe we're not seeing it anymore because we've evolved past it along with the rest of the world, you know? And so the society norms and acceptable behaviors have changed.
Yes.
And so they're relying on that in this movie way too much.
Yes.
To where, like, so I think the painting issue is a couple things. I think it's trying to demonstrate her personality change. She doesn't like art at all. Not only that, but she has the audacity to bring home naked people in a painting. Well, for us, it's difficult as the viewers, because I'm pretty sure she did something worse than that with Ben the Gardener.
Yes, she did.
And so you're like, what's going on? Well, see, it's not driven home hard enough that Marjo Gortner is not privy and aware to his wife's changes. He sees a couple of things, but he's busy at work buying the sports cars and the mansion they have and stuff, which is a hell of a nice sports car and mansion they got there. I got a nice house, Mr. Ben Harn. I'm not giving up the lovely Angio for Marjo Gortner. But man, he was a provider, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
Right. So there's just things I think that we're not perceiving because the culture has changed so much in 40 years.
Yeah.
And then there's the part that these are clumsy filmmakers. So we could watch like maybe a Hitchcock movie, and we don't need that as much because Hitchcock was smart enough to kind of hold the audience's hand to give them the information needed to what they need. And his plots didn't make a whole lot of sense either, but he gave you enough to where you didn't feel lost or confused.
Right. Yeah.
Well, in this show,
I did for a little while. I did for a minute on this one.
Well, it's because things are just happening. And you're just supposed to go along with a possession. The reasons why and all that aren't supposed to matter that much. You're there for the boobs, the beast, and the blood.
Yeah, and there's some boobs in it. That's for sure.
There are. And beasts with boobs. And beasts with boobs that are beasts.
Yeah.
This movie was highlighted a lot in Fangoria, as you can imagine, for the effects.
Was it really?
For the effects.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And man, I couldn't wait to see this movie, Harley, because Bobby Breeze I always call her Bobby Breeze. And that was a mistake on my part from when I was a kid. I misread her name. It's Brazee or Brazy or whatever. It's Bresee. I always thought it was Breeze or whatever. So I apologize to everybody listening. It's a habit of mine. So let's just call her Susan. Okay.
Sure.
So in Susan's look, her face Buechler did a great job of creating the demon to fit her facial features because her facial features look a little demon-y.
Yeah,
they do.
Yeah,
they're hard and they're not very inviting. And although she has an inviting shape and figure, and I'm not saying she's ugly. I'm just saying she has a unique look, and it's perfect for someone who's being possessed and being turned into a monster because the journey to the monster with her facial features. You're an artist with her facial features. To me, are great. There's so much to work with there to make her ugly and scary looking because she's not far away from being scary looking. To begin with, or whatever. Yeah. So, that being said, I always wanted to see this so bad because of the effects, because of the pictures I was seeing in Fangoria and reading about it. Now, what they never told you in Fangoria was how good or bad the script was. As a 47-year-old man, I can finally tell you that Fangoria was very good about reporting back on the movies coming out and the effects and the stars. Not the validity of the story of the scripts. I've got it. I get it now. I get it. Okay. But one of the great effects in the movie is when I think it is, who is it, her aunt or someone who is that person? There is someone who's connected to her who comes and she's an attractive looking woman, probably about our age, about 50 or so. And she comes to the house and Susan just says, you know what? No. And she floats her up and splits her in half.
Yeah. And it's like she walks up, she's like, "What's going on in this place?" And she turns around, and she's the demon, and like, "Oh wait, right, yeah," and then just levitates her and tears her.
So what we're missing here is these producers and stuff. I'm sure what they're thinking. They're going to see these Friday the 13th movies and stuff, and they're thinking, all we need to do is put some scary scenes on film, and we got money. Well, they're right. I'm sure they did make some money with this and everything. But there's a big difference. Like in Friday the 13th. We had one motivation. Yeah. Jason Voorhees was drowned.
Yes.
Okay. So everything stems from there. So he drowns. So she goes nuts. So she's killing kids. And then she gets killed. And then comes to find out he's a zombie, I guess, living in the lake, I suppose. I don't know. But he clearly is. It's told at some point, clearly it's a legend that he saw his mom getting killed then. Yeah. And stuff. That's all you need. But there's something to start with. There's something to go on. I don't got nothing with this movie except Bobby Breeze is just randomly her family is randomly cursed.
Yes.
And she's randomly, I don't even know if they talk about what age that the women are supposed to start going demon-y and stuff. Right. And I don't really recall, like...
And what do they say about the women? It's like some... God, what's the curse called? It's like...
it's the nomad. The family... listen to this. I hate to tell you this, and I was wondering if you would catch this. So, the family name is Nomad, right? Yeah. Well, that's kind of an Alucard. Yeah. Well, Nomad is demon backwards.
Yeah, there you go.
So, there you go. The 80s. I don't know what to tell you. And there's really, the motivations of this movie are just sort of up in the air. And it's kind of a constant through the whole film. So you have kind of a decent movie if you would just have motivations throughout the thing. Sure. And by decent, I mean an acceptable movie. What we have here is we have an acceptable movie. However, it's lacking just a simple cohesion of why. Just give me a reason why, because you have to be able to resolve the why.
Right.
It's Christmas time. You need an explanation. It's a gift.
Yes.
So, what we have, is that we have all this stuff going on, and we have monsters, and the monster's good, and everything's good, and all this stuff. But we don't have any kind of explanation for anything, but we have a movie that has some cool monster stuff and some cool stuff that should scare you. Yeah. All I need to do is tell you this. This film was produced by a one Michael Franzese. Or Franzese?
It's all Italian. There's some Italian in this, isn't there?
Let me refresh your memory. Have you ever heard of a gangster named the Yuppie Don?
No, buddy. I'm sorry. No.
Michael Franzese. There are documentaries on History Channel where he's one of the whistleblower guys. He was a very good-looking guy who had a thing going in I think it was in New York City. He was skimming off of gas stations.
Really? Okay.
So, like, if you went to, like, this gas station, a penny of every gallon was going to him. And it was so small, nobody saw it. The problem was he was doing this without the consent of the higher ups and the mafia.
Ah, yeah, okay.
Okay, so he was known as a yuppie don. He was a real good looking guy. He also produced the movie with Linda Blair in it called Savage Streets.
Yeah.
Yeah, he produced that too.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, so he was a mobster movie producer.
Wow.
So,
okay.
yeah, he produced Mausoleum.
Oh, wow.
So, although he wasn't the guy telling everybody what to do, this is about money.
Yeah.
This movie was made to make money.
Okay.
That's what it was.
Get it?
That's what it was made to
Get
do.
it now?
Yeah. So that's what's going on here. So you have some talented people. Beekler's talented. I think this movie, some of it shot really good.
Sure.
I don't think the acting is even bad. It's not great.
No, no, there's
They could have shot a few things a couple more times.
Sure, yeah.
I don't know, but there's just not there's not a cohesive thing throughout the film.
Story. No.
Yeah, there's
and then the ending is like, what?
Yes, I know.
You know, I'm like, okay, so yeah, you're right. The demon gets tired. They put the crown of thorns on. It gets tired, and then she stab it, or she lays it down in the mausoleum, and then she walks out, and then there's somebody sitting there dressed like a druid, and that druid ends up being who, Timo?
It ends up being Ben the Gardener. He's got a good sense of humor.
Yes.
Just starts laughing. Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, he's laughing at me because I watched this movie. He's laughing like this. You sat and watched this.
Ben the Gardener
movie.
was laughing at Ben the printer.
Yes. And then I got the joke.
Joke's on you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, what?
Kind of feels that way.
Wait a second, man. Like, wait, now is Ben the Gardener in on this, or is it because she killed him, he came back? And then I said to myself, Ben, who cares?
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
It doesn't
No, there's no reason for that. Me and Angie looked at each other. We were just like, I don't know. You know, again, I'm going to go with Beekler. Beekler, there was a little special feature on the disc, which helped a lot with me. And he said, he goes, look, I watched most of it being made. He's like, from what I could tell from him, he was trying to say, I know it's not a good movie, but they didn't know they were making a bad movie.
Right.
Because the individual pieces really aren't bad. It's just when you put it together, you're like, what?
Huh?
Yeah.
Huh?
And I think the producers just thought, a lot of times us as a horror audience, we are underestimated.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, that's sad. That's why we have so many crap movies.
Right.
Because like a producer will think, I'll just throw some, and for some reason the right will watch it. So if you just put like boobs, blood, and beast in a movie, we'll probably watch it. But you know, these days anymore, movies are like bands, man. I mean, there's so many movies now. I quit. I don't watch new movies anymore. There's too many of them. I don't know what to watch. Forget it, because everybody's making them in the backyard.
Yes.
You know, so I don't know anymore. But you go back to these older movies where you kind of think they should know better. Well,
yeah, I would think, and I just felt confused throughout it. At one point, I'm like, does she have a doppelganger or something? Because that can't be the same girl. Yeah, no, that's her. Wait, she's banging the gardener? Wasn't she just telling the one guy to get lost like a minute ago? Wait,
right.
I don't know. I was confused.
It needed,
but then I guess
it badly needed more editing. Yes, shots just linger, man. I mean, they just linger and linger. Even when you think about Susan's last line of the film, and I wrote Simon, like the doctor's name was Simon, and she says, "Simon, I don't understand," and the doctor says, "Shh, there's a lot to explain."
Yeah, like I wish you'd explain.
And then she says, "Where's Oliver, her husband?" He says, "Later." So
poor Oliver too. Man.
Yeah,
that poor guy
Marjo Gardner, he gets it. Yeah, but when you think about it, Bobby at the end of the movie, she says, "I don't know what just happened," and the doctor says, "Shh, no. There's a lot to explain, but we're going to explain where the audience isn't going to be able to hear it."
Right.
And then, well, where's Oliver, my husband? Later, where the audience isn't going to hear that either. So at the very end of the movie, they're basically telling you, yeah, we know you don't know what's going on, and we're not going to tell you.
Yeah. And we don't know what's going on either.
No, we don't know. and eventually, we're going to let Bobby Brzezig know, and that's it. It's if you want to watch a story, it's frustrating. If you want to watch eye candy, it's not bad. It's got plenty of eye candy. I like the monsters in it. I think it's fun. I like Bobby Breeze's figure. I liked it. I'm not complaining about seeing it. I like pieces of this. As a whole, it's so disappointing. It's got a great name. Everything's great. It's like, but you're right. It needs more Mausoleum.
Where's the Mausoleum in this movie?
And they force the Mausoleum in the end. You know it's forced.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Now here's the thing, though. I'm not going to poop on the movie because it's a fun, silly old B movie that makes no sense. Yeah. It's frustrating because if it made sense, I'd be giving it a great bape up. I'd be like, oh, this is good. I'm only going to give it a mild grape ape up, and then I can't poop on it because there was enough there. I know I'll watch this again someday. I've watched it before. This is like the 5th or 6th time I've seen this movie, and I understand it less and less every time I see it. But I think I know what I'm getting into. I just think I know what I'm getting into every time. So I'm just going to give it a, God, if you go in knowing that you're not going to get much of a story, and it only confuses you because it's not there. It's not trying to confuse you. There's nothing confusing. No. You're just confused because you expect more.
Right. Tim, I don't know. I'm gonna.
Ooh.
I got
I'm telling Bobby.
Yeah, and you know, and it sucks because I once again picked this one, not because I've seen it, but we talked and you're like, oh, how did this? Yeah, that sounds good. Mausoleum and some monsters. Yeah, I'm in.
And you got him right. Yeah,
I got it. It's not there are, like you said, Tim, there are bits and pieces of this movie that are worthy of not being pooped on. But as a whole, I just man. And then with Ben the gardener at the end, him laughing at me, I thought to myself, man, this is Tim sitting there laughing at me like, man, I did it again, dude. Like,
it's the Petri dish moment.
I'm like,
you know what was funny when that hooded figure was there? Yeah, and I've seen this before, but I didn't remember last shot. I did not remember last shot. I looked over to Angie. I started laughing before he did. She's looking at me. I knew who it was. I knew it was going to be the gardener because they were like not showing him, and he was the only he's the only person that was in the movie that it could have been, unless it was like Esther unless it was LaWanda Page, which I didn't think so. That would have been great though.
Oh, I'd have laughed at that.
Yeah, she's the best. She is absolutely the best part of the movie, and she's underutilized. And again, they're kind of playing her in sort of a stereotypical role, but I'm going to defend this by saying she again is the most intuitive person in the film.
Yes.
She comes up and she sees the whole house full of like a fog. And what did she say? What the shit's going on in here? And I'm like, I am with you, LaWanda. You're my spirit animal right now. That's exactly what I'm thinking here. So well, that's what you get when you get a monster movie with not a cohesive script that's funded by a mobster.
Oh, geez, man. I'm telling you.
All right, so you're going to... Mausoleum, I'm going to give it a mild... For once, I'm being like, I'll take the nudity and the blood a little bit. Yeah. Well, I've seen this so many times, I think I kind of knew what I was getting into. And I do like the monsters in it. I like Piekler's work in it. I like the technical work in it. I don't like the creative storytelling of it. And I need a story. And I admit that. And we're not getting a story here. At all. So I understand you're pooping on the movie. I'm just going to give it a little crutch. That's all I'm doing here. So, all right, let's get out of here, Mr. Ben Harley. Next week, we're going to have our New Year's. Have a New Year's show where we promise we're going to do it really drunk. Oh, boy, you can't wait for that, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to give you the gift of the third, and to me, the best part of the Jerry Chandler interview from Synapse Films. So looking forward to that.
Part 3.
That's right. That is right. So until next week, Mr. Ben Harley and all you deep thinkers, be good to each other, stay safe, and we'll be back here next week. So stay spooky, and we'll talk to you then.
Keep it creepy, people.
You've been listening to the Timo and Harley Show, brought to you by ScreenPrintingFactory.com. Your affordable one-stop solution to all your screen printing needs.